Okay. Um, give this thing a second to get going here. All right, hopefully we're live. I gotta say, one of my least favorite parts of having to move my work fully into this digital online world instead of being at events and being with groups of people is sharing these messages that are like universal downloads. I mean, I these messages and the spirit of this group is it's a spiritual practice for me, and then I come in here and it's so strange to instead of be making eye contact with other people who are sharing a vision and holding a vision with me, to see my own face mirrored back is so strange and I don't love it. So I will be looking forward to being back in churches and community centers and offices sometimes and not looking at my own face when sharing these kinds of messages. A day will come. It is coming. Okay, beautiful friends, beautiful people. Ugh. This week is not surprising. It is heartbreaking. And if you joined with me for the time of non denominational prayer and reflection earlier in the day on Wednesday, you know that this is not surprising. Nothing that happened is surprising. Um, but here we are, and here we are figuring out what does this mean to our peace building efforts moving forward. And I'm sure I'm not the only person who has seen, just an awful lot on social media about being done, just being like, that's it. I'm done. I have no interest in healing this divide. Um, and I think part of that is about blame. As I've been sharing recently, I don't think that peace is about ignoring truth. And I don't think that being a loving person means that we don't hold folks accountable. I'm perfectly fine with accountability, and I think that love is strong enough to sit with truth. So I think that that's okay. But I also think that part of what I'm reading is exhaustion and like overwhelmment. I mean, it's a big deal. What's happening in our country, not just right now, but what has been steadily building for years, it's not going to go away with overnight. It's not going to go away just like that. These are deep divisions. And, I think part of what's exhausting and exasperating about what we're experiencing is kind of this sense of um, where do we get started, right? The hurt, the wound is not a physical wound. Can you imagine if you were dying and you got to the hospital and they were going to operate on you and they're like, well, the first problem is we got to figure out what's going wrong. And so then there's like this hours long process while you're dying of trying to figure out what the problem even is, or like where the wound is, or like where should we operate? Like that would be stressful. That would not be good. And, in some ways, that's kind of what's happening. It's like I talked earlier in this group about the difference between a Trump supporter and a Trump voter. Like a long time ago, we had that conversation. And here we are. I won't blather on about this ad nauseum because there are some very helpful parts of the mindful improv framework that I think can speak into the situation. But I think it is important to realize that part of what makes this so overwhelming is that it's not necessarily super clear, like, how do you get started operating? Where is the step to even start fixing it? So if you are feeling overwhelmed, if you are feeling exhausted, if you are feeling over it, I hear you, and I just have bountiful, abundant love for you. And I do empathize. And also, I think it can be helpful to realize that the first thing to do is maybe to stop asking, how do we fix it? That's the question that is burning you out. That's the question that is overwhelming you. So it's okay to stop asking the question, how do we fix it? And ask the question, what do I need right now? And, one of my favorite parts of the mindful improv framework is understanding there's a book called Truth and Comedy. I think I actually have it on my shelf right there, Truth and Comedy. Um, And one of the things that they teach, this is one of the first things that I had the privilege of learning when I was becoming an improviser, it feels like a billion years ago, is that one of the most important skills an improviser can ever learn is to notice when they're not needed on stage. When is it a time that you're not needed on stage? And part of that is about humility, but part of it is also about self-care, you know? And so rest is acceptable. And if you are in this moment feeling like, I don't have more to pour into this right now, that is okay. In fact, it's really important for you to listen to that. Because if you were to try and go about the work of peace building right now, there is a really good chance that you would say things that make it worse, right? There's a really good chance that it would break you. It would not be a pleasant experience for you, and it would not be a productive experience for anybody else. And so it's important when you are feeling like, I'm over it. Okay, what are you over? What are you over? Because if you're over trying to change people, good. That's not a battle you can win. If you're over trying to push against something that you don't have control over, good. That's not a battle you can win. That's not what peace building is. So maybe what's happened is a helpful understanding of what the work is, okay? Because the work is not to siphon out of you what you don't have to pour into something. Does that make sense? So if you're feeling over it, I really invite you to take some time to breathe. And I shared a story on my personal Facebook page about myself hitting that wall on Wednesday night. And, you know, I didn't hit the wall because of the news. I hit the wall because of social media. And I hit the wall because of just not having the boundaries that I teach other people to have. I did not employ those boundaries for myself on social media. And I got pulled in and I was like, wow, I'm so overwhelmed right now. And I was glued to my phone. I was trying to get my kids in bed and I'm like glued to my phone. And when I realized, whoa, what am I doing? Like, I'm being short with my kids. I'm not being very patient. I'm not being present. You know, I thought better of it. I put my phone down and my daughter, who's 7, said, Mommy, what's the matter? And I told her, you know, something terrible happened in our country today and I'm feeling scared and I'm feeling a little bit overwhelmed. And when I feel like I don't have control, it makes me feel angry, but I'm not mad at you. And she said, I understand, Mommy. Sometimes I feel like that too. And if you know anything about our foster care to adoption journey, you know that she very much knows about any child that has lived through the experience of foster care and adoption knows the experience of, I am witnessing terrible things around me. A terrible thing is happening and I don't have control. She, you know, is an expert in these feelings. And so I said to her, do you have any advice for me? And she goes, let me think. And she goes, yeah, have you tried butterfly breaths? I wish you could have heard her sweet voice asking me if I've tried butterfly breaths. Like, so sincere, so sincere. And when I shared this story, somebody asked me on my personal page to teach what butterfly breaths are. It's just a breathing exercise. I'll show you what it is. But it's a very simple breathing exercise. So if you want, you can try it with me. Pretend you have butterfly wings with your arms. We're going to breathe in. And out, just like this. And, you know, it's so simple. And I thought about not doing the arms with her when she was leading me in this exercise. But I challenge you to still do it because there's something about doing this and accepting the invitation into this level of like innocence and vulnerability that, you know, it looks kind of silly to do. And I found a lot of grounding in that. And part of it was just being seen when I was feeling vulnerable by my daughter, you know, being so loved and so cared for in that moment. But really, I mean, this physicality and deciding like, I'm going to do something that I haven't done before and it seems silly, but I'm going to do it anyway. It's the same principle that I teach in my separate life doing corporate work. The reason why I require everyone to participate in the improv games during that portion of the event is because it's vulnerable. It feels silly. And watching people whose job it is to be the boss, be in charge, have whatever professional persona, and be like, are you willing to sacrifice that? Because it's one thing to talk about vulnerability. It's one thing to talk about courage. And it's another thing to literally practice it over something that might sound dumb, but it is all those little things that when we practice when the stakes are low and we figure out, oh, you know what, I am capable of being vulnerable. I am capable of surrendering some of this armor in front of other people for the purposes of connection. That's when really powerful things happen. So anyhow, I challenge you to go ahead and try. So that's all butterfly breaths are. I promised Hattie that I would teach you. But the purpose of even talking about breathing is that's the first step. So I've kind of worked out as I've been thinking, like, what is specifically the mindful improv framework for helping us process this? The very first step is we can't think about peace as a thing that our whole entire country, someday we will get to peace. You've probably heard that quote, peace is the way. And I remember the first time I heard it and I was like, God, that's annoying. That sounds like a whole bunch of liberal mumbo jumbo. That was my honest to God knee-jerk reaction the first time I saw that bumper sticker. There is no way to peace. Peace is the way. I was like, well, that's not very instructive, is it? And just keeping it real here. That was my first reaction. But what I've come to understand now is that the wound is ambiguous. The wound is right here. The wound is sitting behind your eyeballs, right? The wound, we are all the ones that need peace. We are all those ones. And so when we can choose a sense of like, okay, let me breathe for a minute. Let me breathe for a minute. Remember who I am. Remember what I'm about. That is a powerful step forward. So the very first step is that peace right here. So taking some breaths, asking, what do I need in order to be about this work? I took some notes here. That's what I'm looking down at. What do I need? So that question, what do I need, can be difficult to answer. I remember people asking me that a lot when I was in a chaos tornado in foster care. So what do I need in order to have hope? What do I need in order to summon some patience and understanding? Hi, Aunt Janine. What do I need in order to get into some creative thinking about moving forward? What do I need for that? Probably the answer is breath, rest, healthy food, water. Are you taking care of yourself? Are you taking care of yourself? Sometimes those very most basic things, slowing down enough to write your thoughts and feelings. I have had some powerful moments of self-discovery and growth by simply slowing down enough to write something. You can't write as fast as you can think. And so forcing yourself to slow down and really think about what's going on is really, really helpful. Hi, Uncle Lynn. Thanks, guys. It's nice to see who's watching. So that's the first part of that mindful improv framework. Notice when you're not needed on stage. It is okay for you to take some time. And it's not just that it's okay, it's critical that you take some time to breathe, to restore yourself. That's step one. So step two, I'm not sure if it's helpful I'm going to go with the mindful improv framework first, and then I'll say the more general name of the step second. So the mindful improv framework that is next, the critical thing for processing what is happening and for figuring out what is the peace building path forward, is to realize that all of this is improv. And I want you to just really understand what I'm saying here. Let me get some water for 1 second. Everything that's happening is improv. And when we remember that it's improv, we remember that there is not this predetermined way that this has to play out. We haven't stepped out and now there's no going back from here. That's not how it works. This is improv. We're not in some dystopian horror movie, like this is improv. We are all collaborators here. We are all participating in what the story will be going forward. So I just want you to take a second and understand how much freedom there is in acknowledging the improvised nature of everything that is happening around us. Okay? We exaggerate the power that people have over us. And it's not to say that there are never specific instances in which one person is holding, for sure, more power than someone else, but we exaggerate the degree to which we have to read from somebody else's script. Are you with me so far? This whole thing is improv. Nobody decided the day you were born, like, here's your script. Hope you learn it really well. You can't get away from it. I'm the director. You have to do whatever I say. This is how it's going to go. You're an improviser. You have been improvising since your first infantile desire to connect with another person, your first smile, your first giggle, your first interaction with your parents. That's all improv, and you have been improvising ever since then. So, the reason why I'm really doubling down on this is that there is a tremendous amount of freedom that we can find, creative freedom. Freedom to realize, ooh, there's more going on here than what I thought. When you realize this is all improv. I'm just going to take a second here to make sure I don't skip anything that I wanted to say on this point because it is critical. Yes, there is more possibility than we realize. So part of this is permission. This is the less improv-y word for you. Step 2 is permission. Permission to stop telling the same story I've been telling. Ooh, here's what it is. I thought about this a while ago. I haven't mentioned it in a while, but so I don't know if anyone here has a theater background at all. Maybe you did that in high school or you've been in a play before. But if you've ever had the experience of being handed a book with the whole script in it and your part, and you highlight what your lines are and you memorize them, there's a moment in a production where all of the performers are expected to be off book. That means you no longer need that little book that has all your lines in it. Has anyone had that experience before? I used to do theater. I was in like the drama club at my church in my high school. So there's this moment when you're off book. And what it might look like to people when they come see the show is like, oh, no one's reading from a script here. And of course, in a play, you know they've memorized lines. But when you understand that all of life is improv, there's a really critical challenge that you have to reconcile within yourself, which is, am I improvising? Am I taking advantage of that opportunity to decide, ooh, I get to pick what happens next. I get to pick what my attitude is right now. I get to pick what I'm brave enough to say out loud. I get to pick if I'm going to be something different than who I've been. I get to choose that. I don't have to be, I'm not, married. I hate that I did like handcuffs and then said the word married. Whoops. That's not how I feel about marriage. But you're not, forever committed to who you've been. That's not how it works. This is improv. So whatever story you've been telling yourself about, what the situation is, about whatever, victim story or whatever story. I don't know what you'll assign to these words, but think about it. What story are you really used to telling? What role are you really used to playing? If you've decided that, there's people in your family, in your church, in your community or whatever that, you don't have permission to be the fullest expression of who you are in front of, that's a lie. That's a lie. This is improv. This is improv. And another part of what makes this experience so exhausting, and a lot of the reaction that I've heard on Facebook is like sort of writing off the whole experience of healing and peace building because of these extremist groups. And one of the things that I've shared for a long time, and Erin Kelly, she's a trauma therapist that she and I used to do some of this work together back in the days of in-person events around using improv for forgiveness and confrontation. We'd do some of those trainings together. And, we would talk about when you're doing the proactive forgiveness work, that really in-depth peace building work, don't assume that you have to start with literally the hardest example ever. You don't have to start with the most traumatic thing that's ever happened to you. Most of you don't know a Proud Boy, okay? So don't think that the work of peace building has to happen at that heightened of an extreme level. Okay, the work of peace building is sometimes most critical and most powerful and productive and effective when you get real with people in your own family, when you are willing to do some serious reckoning within your own dang self. I guarantee you there are conversations in your church, in your neighborhood, in your own family, in your own circle of friends that will bring out some freedom, that will bring us closer as a society to justice. When I talk about peace, I'm never talking about that fragile quiet that's like, oh, careful, it might break. If we talk about the real stuff, it'll break. Never. I just spit a whole bunch on myself. I am never talking about that. That's not what real peace is. We're talking about the real deal. When all are fed, all are safe, abundance of good things, that kind of peace, okay? We're not talking about like, we're just quiet about injustice and that way, we're not fighting and that's what peace is. That's not what we're talking about here. So you can find some real peace building by giving yourself permission to be who you know you really are. Okay? You don't have to stick to any script. You don't have to be married to stuff you've said before. You are free to explore what's going to happen next through a lens that says it is all possible. Whatever is good is possible next. I get to choose how I'm going to respond. So that's step 2, permission. We had peace, now we have permission. Okay, number 3, there's only 4. If you're trying to keep track of where we're at time-wise, we're at 3 of 4. So I'm calling this alignment. And in the improv world, we talk a lot about honoring your scene partner and honoring your own creative contributions. If you have been a part of this work with me, if you've done any live trainings, you've heard this type of language before. Also in that book, Truth and Comedy, there's this quote about, I might get this not 100% correct, so feel free to fact check me, but something to the sense of treat your scene partner like a creative genius. And that's how you'll give them permission to be that in front of you, or space to be that in front of you, something to that effect. But the idea is that people can feel what you expect from them. So if you've already decided this person's a racist, this person's a bigot, this person is brainwashed, this person is stupid, this person is a snowflake, this person is whatever, the words that we use to decide, this other person is not my caliber, this other person is not where I am and the level of wokeness or whatever. This person is not a real Christian. This person is whatever. Once you decide what you think someone is, they feel that. And learning is vulnerable. Honesty and authenticity is scary. So if you feel like you're not getting authenticity from someone, check yourself. Is there a chance that you have not created a space that is safe enough for that gift? It is an honor for someone to be real. There was someone who in this group yesterday posted something about, and she in the past has posted how she disagrees with some of the things that I have posted, or she's struggling with is maybe a more accurate representation of her perspective. And I was sincere in saying, thank you. Thank you for saying how you really feel. All I ever want this group to be about is authenticity. Okay, we're not going to get anywhere as a society if we're all trying to fake it and say the right things and make sure we know. That is not remembering improv, right? That's the book. That's the script I'm talking about. Trying so hard to remember what the lines are. What is it? What are the words it's okay to say about this, that, and the other thing? Get into alignment first. Remember that your creative contributions are worthy and valid and helpful. Remember that the contributions of others, even if you don't understand them, even if you disagree with them, they are valuable. Do you guys remember in this group when I posted, or somebody else in the group actually, it wasn't me, posted a story about somewhere in Pittsburgh, neighbors, one had a Trump sign, one had a Biden sign, and then they made signs pointing at each other saying, we love them. And that story got mixed reviews. I think it was the most engaged post in the history of this group. There's some like 80 jillion comments. I'm exaggerating because I don't remember exactly. Beautiful conversation that was very clarifying to me about the needs of this group, very clarifying to me about where we're at and what we need and what peace building really means to me. I don't know about you guys if you engaged that post at all, but the presence of disagreement is not the presence of this impossible divide, or we don't need to be afraid. It's safe to disagree with someone. It's safe to stay disagreeing, even after you talk about it, right? We treat confrontation like the goal is to win someone over, to change someone. But if you read the description of this conversation, I talked about invitation to co-growth. I am trying really hard to unlearn the language of changing people, helping people change. And as someone whose background is in social work, I have a lot of training in motivational interviewing, the trans-theoretical model, and change is a word that is kind of like, it's used a lot. It's deeply baked in my brain to talk about change. And I think the most helpful thing we can do is realize what a condescending stance that is, what an unhelpful and inaccurate stance that is. And I am coming to you right now as someone who has had a lot of growing to do. I've been honest and vulnerable in this group about conspiracy theories that I spread around my campus in college about Barack Obama being the Antichrist because somebody, a leader in my church, said that to me and I trusted him. And so believe me when I tell you a separate Facebook Live is coming about the responsibility church leaders have right now in helping to prevent radicalization. A separate thing is coming as someone who knows what it is to get sucked into a conspiracy theory. But for our purposes right now, I want to just remind you that the people you are most sure are hopeless and need to change are on a journey too. I was. When I was saying things that were unloving, when I was saying things that were hurtful, when I was saying things that could be correctly labeled as racist or as homophobic or sexist or whatever, that was not coming from a place of someone who's like, well, I hope the world burns and I hope America burns and I want everyone that's not like me to die or go to hell. That was not my worldview. And I got lumped in the category with folks that might have felt that way, but that was not my worldview. What I want you to realize is that every single person in the world, yourself included, your mom, your uncle, your neighbor included, spends time every day in one of two categories. The category of being connected to their understanding of who they really are, which means remembering I am an extension of love. I am here on this earth trying to spread love. That's who I really am. We call the act of making more people making love. We are love. That's who we are. That's our deepest human truth. We are love. And when you are tapped into that and you are remembering that, regardless of what name you say when you pray, when you are tapped in to that understanding, there are behaviors that you just cannot do. There are things that you cannot say when you are tapped into that. And people spend time tapped into that. But when you get distracted and pulled out from that understanding, that's when you start speaking out of a place of fear, out of a place of defensiveness, out of a place of resentment. And I know that I get pulled out of alignment with my understanding of who I really am and what I'm really about and who I am in God, who I am as a woman of faith. I know I get distracted and pulled out of that with certain kind of rhetoric. And it is true that there is a lot of difference in our country on what kinds of things we say, what kinds of things we believe and stories we, perpetuate and share when we get called out of alignment. But understand that that's the only problem. That person is out of alignment. Not that person is hopeless. Not that person is worse than me. Not that person is less than. Not that person is stupid. Okay? That's not what's happening. You are correctly identifying someone who is out of alignment. And what does it change when we realize that? Everything. Because nobody wants to be your project. Nobody wants to be your missions project. I didn't. I didn't change because people called me a racist. I didn't change because people got in my face and were like, you're a bigot. Could they have been right? Yeah. Could they have justified saying that to someone? Sure. Could they have gone back to their corners of campus and gotten applause from their echo chamber for standing up for what they believed in? Sure. Would they have gotten the opportunity to see me learn? No. And so hopelessness comes from not getting many opportunities to see that any of your work is fruitful. Hopelessness comes when it feels like a futile effort. Yes? It's not futile. And you don't always see the seeds that you plant. So I could just speak on this forever, and I want to move on in interest of your time. I know a lot of you are joining me on lunch breaks and things, but what I want you to understand is that your scene partners are people that you can trust. Scene partner is an improvism, meaning anyone that you are talking with in a given moment. So people in your family that disagree with you, people in your neighborhood and your church that don't see it the same way as you, these are your scene partners, okay? And one of the most problematic things we can do as peace builders is decide that what we're going to do is prove to those people that they are wrong and that we know more than them and whatever. That's not going to be helpful. And in fact, what will happen is for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction, right? If you didn't see the live session where I shared about Newton's laws of motion and how that applies to emotional momentum as well, please go back and watch that. I'll link to it because I think it's really important. We can use those same laws to understand how to actually get forward momentum. So what will happen if you treat your scene partner that way? You treat them as someone that you need to overcome or win over or change or whatever, is that there will be an equal and opposite reaction. So that person is likely to lash out at you and it won't feel good. And then you'll both leave deeply rooted in a story that says, ugh, this is their fault. And okay, so remembering who your scene partner really is and remembering who you really are, this is alignment. This is what alignment is. I know who you are because I remember who I am. And when you get tapped back into that knowledge, that's when really beautiful moments can happen, because that's when you will have created an environment that is safe enough for authenticity, that is safe enough for someone to learn in front of you. I was still learning from other people. Obviously, I continued learning and no longer believe some of those hurtful things that I believed before. But that was a part of a journey. And the only people who, like, I probably burned people out. There's probably somewhere people, super liberal people in Oregon that are like, bah, that was the day I decided to stop peace building. Sometime I said some mean, stupid crap to somebody in college, which I'm sure I did. And the reality is I was on a journey. They just couldn't see it. And I just hope that we can all remember that. So that's step 3, the worthiness of this other person. And I don't know if I successfully reminded you the worthiness of your own contributions, but I hope you can remember that too. You don't need to be a freaking PhD in peace building. You don't need to have spent time in Northern Ireland understanding conflict in order to be the perfect scene partner in a moment. All you need is to be tapped into who you really are. Have faith in yourself. Remember who you are. Have faith in this other person. Remember who they really are. Have faith in the process. Those are the 3 components of alignment. Me, you, process. When you have faith in those 3 things and you remember, oh, this doesn't all have to happen in one conversation. There's going to be more conversations. It's not my job to do it all. It's my job to be faithful to what I know is right in this moment. That's all. That's all it is. The show doesn't happen in one scene, right? There's lots of scenes. And if we decide, oh, this scene is over now, that's okay. We can always come back to those characters, those ideas, those themes later when we've had some time to get inspired by new information. That's how improv works. You build it one thing at a time. It doesn't happen like all at once. That would be a very strange show. And also just not possible based on the laws of time and space. Okay, so that alignment, that remembering of your own worthiness and the worthiness of others. And then the 4th thing is participation. Did I say that word? Participation. My son is learning all about weather, and I've been saying the word precipitation a lot. Why am I saying any of this? Okay, number 4 is participation. And this is the part where I think I'm seeing maybe the most exhaustion, is because folks want to skip way past the first 3 things. They want to skip past that piece. They want to skip past the permission, that understanding that this is all improv. They want to skip past that worthiness of self, worthiness of others, and get right into fixing it, right into doing the stuff, And I get that, because that's the stuff that you can most easily point at. When we get into participation, this is where we can do things that you can put on your calendar, cross off a list. This is where our letter writing and our protesting and our whatever things, making bread for people. We did the Bread and Roses challenge in this group a while ago. But the stuff, the thing doing, is step 4. And the reason that it's last is because all that other stuff is what will make this not be a futile effort. All that other heart stuff, that inside work, is what will make this something that's truly productive and joyful. It can be joyful. So 4 is participation, and this is where we get into this improv idea of yes and. So if you've heard me talk about this before, you already know that yes and doesn't mean we say yes to everything. That's not how improv works. This is one of the first things people learn about improv is the words yes and. But when you actually take classes, you really get a sense of how much more there is below the surface. There's so much more to those words than meets the ear initially. And, I have been doing this work long enough to, have heard the immediate response of, we can't say yes to everything. We can't say yes to racism. Whoa, of course. That's not what we're saying. Really, for the purposes of what we're doing here, yes and is really about humility and courage. Humility and courage. The idea of yes and is that you are hearing and receiving the contributions of the people around you, even if you don't understand them right away. Even if you don't totally know who this person is and you're like just not feeling it with them, or whatever the case may be. Understanding the contributions of others and how valuable those contributions can be. So that's humility. That's the humility part. The yes part, the listening part is the humility part. And the other part of that is courage, because it's not enough to listen forever and be scared. Like, what if I break it? What if I say the wrong thing? What if I do the wrong thing? I don't know enough. La, la, la. That is the imposter syndrome thing, right? This is why that worthiness step is so important, because you'll waffle. You'll miss out on opportunities to participate in the story, not obligations. None of it is an obligation. If you miss an opportunity, you're not done forever. You haven't failed, It's an opportunity, and you'll get more opportunities. But you'll miss out, if you haven't done that worthiness work in order to get in your own head and realize, oh, okay, because it's not enough to listen forever and be scared you're going to break it and then never muster the courage to add your own contributions, right? Like, what is my thing to add here? That's the and piece. Listen and build. Listen and build. That's how you build an improv scene. That's what yes and is about. Listen to what your scene partners are saying and add something of your own along with it. Yes and. Listen, build. Humility, courage. Humility, courage. And it's this dance that you have to have, in equal proportion. If you're anding too much, you're going to get exhausted and burned out. And you're going to start telling yourself things like, if you want something done right, you got to get it done yourself. And you're going to start feeling like a martyr. Oh, martyr syndrome is such a big deal in the world of peace building and everywhere. I go to HR conferences and martyr syndrome is the thing everyone wants to talk about. Because when you are doing things feeling like this is my emotional labor, this is what I have to do, you're going to get so worn out. If you feel like you are martyring yourself for the cause, don't do it. There's more people on your team than you realize. Millions and millions and millions and billions of people cheering for you. People holding a vision that is beautiful. Holding a vision that you share. That's the real truth. You're not alone in this. So there's no need for the martyr syndrome, if I don't do it, it won't get done feeling, that's just not how it is. It doesn't get built in a day, so that's that trusting the process piece. And when you are down with that and you really understand that, that's when this building can be joyful. When you're building from a sense of, oh, I see what I can add here, instead of, oh, I have to fix it. No improv scenes have ever been successful, I'm guessing, when the intention of the person joining the stage was, I gotta save it, I gotta fix it. And I'm telling you this as someone who has gotten that note from enough improv coaches in my life to know that it is just not necessary. Trust your scene partners. Silence is not an emergency. Struggle is not an emergency. Oh, woo! I've never said that before. Can we all hear that for a second? Struggle is not an emergency. Watching people get it wrong is not an emergency. I have grown a lot from getting it wrong and realizing like, okay, that didn't feel good. When you remember who people are and you remember that they are asking the forces that you can't see at night, when it's just them and all the stuff that is, and they're trying to figure out, am I doing this right? Am I doing this right? Those forces are whispering to them. I promise you, it is not your job to arm wrestle them onto the right side of history. That's not your job. That's an exhausting amount of work to expect from yourself. And that's not what you have to do. So struggle is not an emergency. You don't have to get in there and beat people into shape. You don't have to get in there and force people, onto the straight and narrow or whatever. You don't have to get in there and save it. Letting people struggle and figure it out for themselves is sometimes the way to make sure that once they latch on to an understanding of deep truth, they really get it, because they have come to that understanding from a sense of sincerity, of realizing like, oh yeah, I remember what that felt like. I remember what that hurt felt like. I remember how awful that was. Pain can be very instructive. Struggle is not an emergency. So when we remember these things, we can participate in a way that it's joyful. I had a conversation with a pastor here in Pittsburgh, where I live. It must have been maybe a month ago or so. It's hard to tell. This week feels like it's been 3 years. And he was lovingly combative with me, which I enjoyed, because I kind of have this like nice Sunday school teacher vibe going on. I don't know if you guys get that from me. Maybe you don't. I hope not. I don't like that I have that vibe, but I've been informed that that's my vibe. And what that means is that sometimes people won't be straight with me. They won't say, ooh, I buck up against that. I don't like that. I didn't think that. They won't say, have you considered this? They'll just be like, oh, she's nice. I don't want to break her, And that is not how this dude was treating me. He was like, this is my deep concern about the way that you're teaching people things. This is my deep concern. I was like, yes, let's have this conversation. And through the unfolding of this just about 2 hours long conversation, we ended up having a really powerful conversation about the difference between, and I hope you're ready to really hear this, the difference between peace building that says, I need people to know that I'm right. I need people to see the error of their ways. I need my echo chamber. I'm aware of who is watching. And I need my echo chamber to know that I'm doing the work. I need them to know. I need them to see me doing the stuff. And in our particular conversation, we were talking about racial justice and how important it is, especially for people who have white skin, not to approach the work of racial justice from a perspective that says, please tell me I'm not a racist. I need to feel approval. I need to feel reassured that I'm not a racist. That's not a thing you can need from someone, because guess what? There's probably things you're believing that are racist. There's things all of us are holding on to that can grow and be better. I love hearing Brene say, I'm not here to be right, I'm here to get it right. When we're looking for validation that says, please tell me I'm good, please tell me I'm good, please tell me I'm good, then we're missing out on opportunities to hear what's true. Let me say that a different way. We're missing out on opportunities to grow. Tell me that I'm right and tell me how I can do better are not the same, obviously, right? So anyhow, this pastor and I had this conversation about how valuable it is to decide, I am so committed to the work of peace building. I'm so committed to the work of actually achieving the purposes of racial justice or whatever it is. I'm so committed to that work that I am willing not to have this satisfying moment of, aha, I gotcha with the perfect statistic. I gotcha with the perfect anecdotal piece of evidence. Gotcha peace building is not what we're about. That's not peace building. It's just a phrase that I said just now because it sounds catchy. That's not a real way to build something good. It's a way to maybe feel better in the moment, because overpowering people does feel better than the humble invitation to co-growth, right? I am growing. I'm on my journey. Is it okay if I share something with you that I learned? I can understand why you might think of that. Is it okay if I share something with you that I learned recently? Co-growth. We are growing together. Not one of us has eliminated all of our bias beliefs and vantage points and behaviors and attitudes. Not one of us. Not one of us has. Not one of us is done with the work, right? So let's stop shaming each other. Let's stop assuming that we can shame people into love. You shame people into shame and resentment. That's what happens. And by the way, you're not enough and I'm not enough are two sides of the same coin. Can I get an amen? Because I know that I'm not alone in realizing, why am I so down on myself? Why am I so overwhelmed? Why do I feel so trapped? And then I realized, oh, it's because I am spending most of my mental real estate pissed at people for not peace building right. Can I make a confession? Can I tell you the number of late night Epsom salt soaks I've had, realizing, ooh, I am spending a lot of time paying attention to other people's deficiencies. And really what that is it's pointing inward, right? It's pointing inward. And it doesn't feel good. It feels so much better to just learn, to get in that headspace of alignment and say, whew, I'm here to learn. I'm here to grow. I'm here to figure out how to be the fullest expression of love that I can be. That's what I'm here to do. And then, like a magnet, you start noticing that you're inviting other people to be that in front of you. And then you can have productive conversations you wouldn't otherwise have had. And that will fill your sails. That will refill your sails. If you are feeling like just glug, I understand. And I hope that thinking first about like, okay, I won't ask, how can I fix it? How can I fix it? I'm cool with asking, what do I need right now? You know, that's step one. Let's just do a quick recap here. So that was step one. Stop asking, how can I fix it? Start asking, what do I need right now? What do I need in order to have hope, in order to have patience, in order to be understanding, in order to think creatively? What do I need? It might be a smoothie, a nap, and a deep breathing exercise. We make healing out to be this thing that takes a gajillion years, and it doesn't always. There have been times I have gone from flaming mad, 10 out of 10 mad, to being in alignment in 30 seconds. My child, my youngest, has taken to saying to me, he'll come over and put his cheek right on my cheek and say, Mommy, take a deep breath. And I'm just like, you angel from heaven. Yep, that is what I needed. That's what I needed. You want to be in alignment. Your natural instinct is you want to be in alignment. You want to be remembering that you are worthy. You want to be remembering that other people are too. You want to be remembering that this doesn't happen in one day. You, me, process. You want to have faith in those three things. That's your natural, like, whew, this feels the best. This is how I'm most productive. That's your natural state. So really all that's happening when you heal in those moments is you like let go of something. No, it's not let go this way. It's let go this way. You're letting go of the anchor that's sucking you down into resentment. It only feels like relief. It only feels like, thank you. That's what I needed to hear from you. That's what I needed. That's how it feels. It's not treacherous, emotional, laborious work to heal and to get into alignment. It feels good. It feels like relief. Okay? So these moments can happen quickly. So, first of all, maybe just realize that, the work of peace in myself, healing in myself, it's not static. So it's not like you release that one time and then you're like, woo, good to go forever. Woohoo, check me out. No, of course not. Multiple times a day, I'm like needing for Coop to come over, put his little cheek on me and be like, Mom, take a deep breath. I'm like, yes, sir, you are correct. So that's that step one. And then step two is the permission to do what you know is right, to be who you know you really are, to be braver than you have been, to be more authentic than you have been. Just because you've been phoning it in before and sticking to your script that you kind of knew what people were expecting you to say, you don't have to keep doing that. You don't have to keep doing that. This is all improv. All of life is improv. You get to be whatever you need to be. You get to be whoever you really are, okay? That's step two. Then that alignment, worthiness of them, worthiness of me, trust the process, those three things. And then the participation. That's when we can get into the work with that yes and humility, courage, balance. Okay, so I'm truly hoping that this was restorative and meaningful to those of you who are watching. It's a big deal what we're going through, but it's important to realize that this is not a surprise. This didn't catch us off guard. This has been brewing. It was all but promised that this would happen. This is the reason why I had that time of prayer and reflection earlier in the day on Wednesday. we knew that this type of thing was percolating. All that's happening right now is an opportunity for reckoning and an opportunity for healing. So that's what I wanted to share today. I am going to be live next week. I don't know exactly when, but I'll make an announcement about it because I feel extremely behooved to connect with folks who are leaders in the church right now. Even if you're not a pastor, I'm seeing a lot of language bouncing around on Facebook right now from other Christians. I am a Christian as well. I think I've been open about that in this group, even though this group is meant to be open to everyone. But I'm feeling aware of the language that I'm hearing about loving your neighbor, or not loving your neighbor. That's always super duper good. Loving your enemies. And there's a lot to unpack here. But let's just be real clear about how important it is to hold people accountable. Accountability is not unloving. So, just a little preview of what is to come about accountability. Also, about people who are leaders in the church. Now is a really, really, really critical time for you to be noticing high opportunities for radicalization of young people in your midst. So, if you are a youth leader, a youth mentor, a pastor, anyone in a position of leadership, especially in an evangelical church right now, please, 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 please don't sidestep your responsibility right now to hold folks accountable, lovingly, of course. But we'll talk about some ways that that is a joyful process as well. Because at no point am I interested in being a fear-mongering person in the world or any such thing like that. That's not what this group is about. The journey is joyful. The journey can be joyful. So when I have percolated enough with that concept to joyfully share what will hopefully be words of wisdom and encouragement and equipping, that's what's coming next down the pike. So be thinking, if you know people who are leaders in the Christian church, I'd love for you to invite them, for you to tag them, for them to be a part of that conversation, because now is a critical, critical, critical time. Okay, big love to all of you. Please take some butterfly breaths today, and don't forget who you really are. Bye.